Hey everybody, Tony D with some screenwriting tips. I know it's been so long. It's just so much politics and so little movies. Wouldn't the world be a better place if there were more movies and less politics? Probably not. Anyhow, I got a letter, email. So let this be viewer selection or by request from Justin. I won't say your last name, Justin, because I don't know if you want that out there. And I moved the body of the letter into a file so it wouldn't show your email. Uh, Look at me thinking ahead. But so I'll just read a little bit of the letter. I won't read the whole thing. I don't know if Justin wanted his whole deal read. He said, "Hello, Tony. I'm Justin. I've been watching your videos for about a year now after searching through many YouTube channels listed as screenwriting channels." Thank you, Justin. You have some interesting content on your channel. Thank you. More of your current vids over the past few months have been more political, which is cool, and all because of the pandemic. And he gets into a little bit of what he likes in politics. I won't read it, Justin, just because I don't know if you wanted that stuff read. Anyhow, I have been trying to write a film noir type screenplay myself, off and on, at my leisure, for close to 2 years now. Yeah, I know that is quite a long time to write a screenplay. I'll admit up front that I'm currently no writer like you or other screenwriters are with their craft, envious, and quite frankly, writing frustrates the hell out of me at times, and I just can't stand it. But regardless, I do have an interest in what qualifies as good story writing. Since I don't believe that you've done a video about listing your all-time favorite screenplays to read, I think it would be cool if you did, and maybe you could do another one if you want to keep it separate about what you believe are the best written screenplays out there to read too, just for inspiration's sake. Thanks, and give little Joan a treat on me. No, Justin, she's been a bad dog today. Anyhow, the best screenplays I think to read are the ones obviously for movies that you really really like. Now, I don't read a ton of screenplays, especially right now. Um, Kind of, I think for screenwriters, a lot of it is to you do that in the early days to get the understanding of the format and the flow of a screenplay. So if you're struggling with your screenplay, I would totally suggest you read screenplays in the vein of the movie you're trying to write. You're doing film noir, so you'd want to read, it'd have to be something fairly modern. I don't know if there's a screenplay, an Orson Welles screenplay lying about. That would be an awesome one. Like if you read A Touch of Evil or The Third Man, which I really like, stuff like that. I don't know if his screenplays are around to read. When I went to college, I went to Ithaca, and Rod Serling had taught there, and all his old Twilight Zone and Night Gallery, they're not screenplays, they're TV plays, I guess, were in the archives there. We actually accidentally broke into some kind of storage room one night and stumbled upon them, like the original. I picked it up and I'm like, wait a minute, this is what was it, The Martians on Main Street? It was like the copy of it, and I was touching it and I was like, ooh, better put this back. But and if you go to the Ithaca College, one of the cool things is you can go to the library and watch, or you used to be able to do this. I don't know if you can anymore, but they had the old 3/4 inch cassettes at the time for videotapes, and you could watch any episode of the Twilight Zone or Night Gallery, and they had the old commercials on them too, which was kind of cool. But I digress. So the Twilight Zone, actually, they would be pretty cool for you. They're not quite film noir. I mean, some of them are, but it gives you it gives you a good idea of the pacing and whatnot. And better your pacing be shorter than longer, especially when you're starting out. So I would definitely, for your particular project, I would go for film noir. Now, just in general, the kind of stuff I like, I read the Monty Python screenplays, some of them. They were great because they have extra scenes that were cut or weren't in a movie, or they never even shot them. extra lines and whatnot, and they would do all sorts of crazy things with a copy of the script. Um, I'm a big fan of Shane Black. I love Shane Black, and his screenplays, his are more action oriented. And the way he would write a screenplay, which I love, is he made it very readable and pithy, right? So he would write in sentence fragments. It would kind of be like he's standing there pitching the movie to you. That's the way he wrote it. Like, John stands up, angry glare, grabs the gun, boom, boom, boom. Like, he wrote like that, like in those fragments, and it works. It's very polished and very readable, which I think went a long way in getting Shane work. Now he's a director, of course, and I think he's very, very, very underrated. But I am incredibly biased when it comes to Shane, my one of my screenwriting heroes. I think Iron Man 3 was one of the good movies. I mean, people don't like Iron Man 3, but I liked it. But Shane directed it, so of course I'm gonna like it. William Goldman, of course, really is the gold standard, the Goldman standard. If you read Adventures in the Screenwriting Trade, he has a copy of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid in the back. And if you read it, it's really fun to read. And he also wrote books. So he had a really good sense of a balance between the screenplay, the functionality of a screenplay, and to make it readable enough so you don't completely fall asleep while you're reading the screenplay. Most people, they just can't read a screenplay. And most people just can't read, really, especially in Hollywood. So just understand that. The shorter and pithier, the better, depending on the genre. For film noir, you can kind of make that work, I think, because, it's all... It's very cynical, I think, a lot of times in a film noir script, so you can do that punchy, pithy dialogue. It's almost humor. It's like bitter humor, almost in the film noir script. But you could certainly do it in comedy, and you definitely do it in action. For a drama, it's really tough to do. I mean, it's really tough to do because, again, like, if you're writing a drama, like in a book, you can describe the emotions and the internal feelings of the character, what they're thinking, and the stuff they're doing. When you write a screenplay, you can't really do that. You can only really write what the audience sees. You have to show, not tell. And you can't, it also depends upon your director and the producers you're pitching to, because, I've been yelled at both ways. There's too much description here. There's not enough description here. We don't know what's going on. So you kind of can't win. You just got to write a screenplay and, give it a good balance of stuff. I write things for me, okay? Now, you don't want to go too far with that. Obviously, if I wrote a movie that I was going to direct, I mean, the other day I shot the stuff for the Pineys. I didn't even have a script for Hemingway's thoughts on hunting. I got out there and I thought, ooh, I could do that really quick. And I pictured it in my head. Now, if I had written it out, it probably would have been a little more polished. I just kind of improv'd it, which is something, again, it depends on the kind. Like, if you're doing comedy, a lot of times it's very loose. I think Judd Apatow, he's got sort of a looseness to his direction sometimes, depending on the project. And, when you got a guy like Steve Carell, who can just riff on stuff, you kind of just say, okay, Steve, this is the blah blah scene, go nuts, but make sure you end it with this. Like, it's kind of like that, right? I knew that when I shot the Hemingway scene, Hemingway's thoughts on hunting, I would just keep riffing until I came up with an ending, which I eventually did. I got that last bit out and I said, oh, that's a good ending, let me end it there. I didn't even shoot anything after that. So I knew that it was a running gag where Hemingway's trying to tell you his thoughts on hunting, but he hasn't prepared anything, and he can't really articulate it very well, and so he just comes up with a bunch of crazy nonsense off the top of his head, and then it just gave me an opportunity to improv, which I hadn't done in ages, and and as soon as I found a funny one, I just went out on a high note, and you could do that in a screenplay, right? Like, I mean, it's a bad example, but it's the only one I can think of off the top of my head. Like Dinner for Schmucks, which was I thought one of the worst movies I ever saw. But Steve Carell plays this really annoying guy, and Paul Rudd is the guy who ends up being annoyed by him. But you could just say, okay, this is the scene where you're both in the bathroom, let's say, and it ends with you guys leaving. And then you just shoot it, right? And you just have the cameras keep rolling while they riff. And they know generally what they're going to do. And maybe they rehearse it a couple of times just to get the flow of it. And then they say, okay, yeah, let's do it. Like, you don't want to rehearse it too many times if you're doing an improv thing. And then, once you're warmed up and you start riffing, it just sort of comes out. And then you just keep shooting it. And, like, at some point, the director's going to go, I think I got enough here. Like, you might take the beginning of one take, the middle of another take, and then the end of the third take, right? They had this really terrible take, but man, they had this hilarious exit line. And then you shot another one where the middle got great, but there was no ending, and it just kind of petered out. And then you got this other one where you started super strong, but the rest of it was just crap. And you cut it all up, boom, you got a brilliant scene. So, that's not really screenwriting. And that's probably not something people will do in other genres like film noir, but it's just something to think about when you're writing this stuff. And you really can't script improv. That's something the actors are going to do and the directors are going to decide upon in your screenplay. So, sorry, I'm off on a tangent here. But getting back to screenplays you should read. You should definitely, Justin, read screenplays that you like from classic movies that you love, and especially in the genres that you want to write in. Because if you read enough of them, you'll start to get telltale signs of what's in all of them. You want to look for the patterns. Like, man, in every screenplay I've read of this, there's always this, this thing at the beginning, or this thing in the middle, or this thing at the end, or whatever. And that could inspire you. You don't want to do the same exact thing, and you don't want to say, okay, I just read that, I'm not doing that. You kind of want to do something in that vein, right? So you want to get a feel for it and then continue the spirit, in your case, of film noir. And that's what reading screenplays should be about for a screenwriter, and that's what reading books for an author or anything. You really want to capture the spirit of the genre you're in and understand it well enough, and then you won't feel hesitant in writing because you'll understand the basics, right? For me, shooting that Hemingway scene, I just came back to the basics. Hemingway is the world's greatest hunter, and everything he does is about hunting. And he's also a bit of a knucklehead. And I wanted to make it funny, so it had to be about hunting. It always has to be about hunting or guns or, romping around in the woods and finding stuff to shoot. So that's what you need to focus on. You need to focus on that in your screenplay for your characters. What are they about? What are the basics here? And always keep that in mind as you're writing, and then you'll have no problems. Just write and let it take you, and just keep heightening, right? You just keep heightening. In the case of film noir, in comedy, you heighten the comedy. You heighten the situation. Maybe it's an emotion or whatever. For film noir, I think what you heighten is the expose. You expose that. You confess, you expose, and there's more and more filth. There's more and more secrets. You unearth, more and more horribleness and how dark the world is. But you're your protagonist somehow endures, even though he's touched by it too. So I hope that answers your question, Justin. It's good to get back into screenwriting. Thank you for the suggestion. You can check out my books online. Don't forget to check out the Pineys. Oh, and I forgot to tell you guys the other day. This is the ad that ran. This is Weird New Jersey magazine. Fabulous magazine if you've never seen it. And the Pineys ad ran in Weird New Jersey. So I just wanted to show you that there. It came out really nice. And for those of you in South Jersey, keep watching the skies. And by the skies, I mean your televisions. Because something is coming up very soon on the Pineys.